Joining us on set for more, Insmed CEO Will Lewis. Well, great to have you with us. Guy was remarking that the first time you were on the show, the stock was, what, $30?
Yeah,
so this has been quite a journey that you've been on. During this past quarter, we had the launch of Brinsupri, which had been better than what analysts had been expected. Q4, though, should be the test. So can you sort of walk us through the push and pulls going into Q4? There was some indication on the calls, I understand, that there could be a more normalized run rate in Q4, but there are a lot of other positive catalysts that could also come about in Q4, like improvement in back office, improvement in payers, et cetera.
So there's a whole lot of reasons for us to be excited at the moment at the company. The first is that the Brinsupri launch in its early days, and it's only 6 weeks of data, looks very, very strong. We had good breadth of prescribing. We had as many as 2,500 patients on drug, which is fantastic out of the gate. Q4 is the first full quarter, and so we really need to see that to know what the shape of the launch curve is going to be. But we're certainly optimistic about that. And behind that, we have a whole host of other clinical and commercial catalysts that we think are going to continue to drive value at the stock.
If you were to make the case that there could be some upside catalysts that happen in the quarter that would lead to continued uptake of Brinsupri, what would those be? There could be inclusion, for instance, in the U.S. recommendation in terms of how this disease is treated, and that could help Brinsupri uptake. What else is there that investors should consider?
So CHEST guidelines just came out, and they're draft guidelines, but we were included and recommended for use under those guidelines, and that's not surprising. This is the first and only approved therapy for the treatment of bronchiectasis. This is a disease that's been around since 1819. So for 200 years, no one has been able to develop a drug that could have an impact until we came along. So we're very excited about that. Take that responsibility very seriously. We have a lot of disease education going on. As far as catalysts that will drive it from here, it's really the breadth and depth of prescribing. We need the centers of excellence to continue to write scripts for patients that will benefit from the therapy, as well as expanding to the almost 30,000 pulmonologists across the United States that are in a position to write this drug.
There's a lot of penetration to come in terms of prescriptions. When it comes to your pipeline, though, a lot of analysts are looking forward to Jan 2026, when there's going to be the Birch data phase 2 readout. Can you walk us through what that could mean for expanded use of this compound?
Well, if we take a step back and think about where Insmed is, we are currently serving between the addressable markets for our first drug, Arikayce, and our second drug, Brinsupri, roughly 250,000, 280,000 addressable patients at the moment. Between now and the end of this decade, that could increase to over 2.5 million if these various drugs in pipeline prove to be successful. The first check of that will be at January at the JP Morgan Healthcare Conference, where we'll have data on CRS without nasal polyps. As you mentioned, there are more than 30 million people in the U.S. alone that have this condition. There's only one generic steroid approved to treat it. So if we were able to make a dent there on the most severe end of the patient spectrum, that would be a significant advance for the company.
Well, congratulations. And people will say, can they go it alone? So I'll ask, $1.7 billion cash equivalents, marketable securities. How long a runway does that give you?
Well, we have a lot going on at the company. I like to say that next year, if things fall into place, we could be kicking off almost as many as a dozen phase 3 trials for multiple indications. So this, as much as we've had a lot change in the last 18 months, the next 18 months are going to be even more eventful. We have a very strong cash position, as you say, and I think that's going to serve us well. As revenue grows from the launch of Brinsupri and Arikayce continues to perform, we certainly expect that the clinical spend will pick up as we go after these different indications, but we have a lot of resource behind that, so we should be in good shape.
So of all those phase 3, so that indicates that those experimental drugs are closer to market in theory. So what is the next drug that you would expect to be approved?
So the next one that's of the first 3, we have Arikayce, which is looking to expand. Right. We have Brinsupri, which is currently approved for bronchiectasis, and we're awaiting data for CRS without nasal polyps and HS, hidradenitis suppurativa, which will come in the first part of next year. And then we have TPIP, which is the drug that we put phase 2 data out in pulmonary hypertension earlier this year. That's going to be addressing as many as 4 different indications: PAH, PH-ILD, IPF, and PPF. And all 4 of those programs will kick off next year.